My name is Ella Thompson. I was always the background child, not the one who stood out, not the one anyone noticed. Chloe was the golden girl, the prom queen, the perfect daughter who never seemed to mess up. Every time our mom, Deborah, praised someone, it was Chloe. Every time there was disappointment, it was me. I remember birthdays, holidays, family dinners, all the moments when love and attention were supposed to be spread evenly. But with us, it was lopsided, weighted heavily toward my sister. I'd sit at the table, quietly listening, trying to make myself small enough to disappear, so I wouldn't get dragged into whatever disappointment my mom found in me that day. And it was always something. "You should be more like Chloe," she'd say, not even trying to hide the contempt. It didn't matter if I'd just gotten an A or helped a friend through something hard. If it wasn't Chloe's achievement, it was invisible. I wasn't a bad kid. I worked hard, I kept my grades up, but none of it mattered. I was just the other daughter, the one who didn't shine bright enough, who wasn't worth celebrating, the one who made mistakes, but whose mistakes were amplified like a megaphone in a silent room. The worst part? Watching Chloe soak up all the love and praise I craved. I wasn't jealous of her for being good at school or popular. I was jealous because my own mother acted like I wasn't even there, like I was a shadow, and shadows don't get noticed. I swallowed my hurt because fighting back only meant more blame, more disappointment. I learned to hide the pain behind a quiet smile, telling myself that someday, maybe someday, they'd see me. That I wasn't invisible. That I was more than just the background child. But those days stretched on, one after the other, and the silence grew louder. And I wondered if maybe I was meant to stay invisible forever. Graduating college with honors should have been a moment of pride, a reason to celebrate. I worked my ass off for 4 years, late nights, early mornings, countless sacrifices nobody saw. When I walked across that stage to get my diploma, I felt like I'd finally proven something, to myself, if not to anyone else. But at home, nothing. No congratulations, no phone call, not even a text from Mom. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at my phone, waiting. Chloe's name popped up instead. Always Chloe. I scrolled through, pictures of her smiling with friends, going to parties, getting praise for the smallest things. The difference hit me like a punch. A week after my graduation, Chloe barely passed a midterm. Just one. Not even a full exam, just one test. And Mom threw a full-blown party. Balloons, cake, the whole neighborhood showed up to celebrate. I watched. From the sidelines, forced to clap while my heart sank. I wanted to shout, "Why not for me? Why does she get the applause and I get silence?" But I stayed quiet, swallowed the bitterness like a bad taste in my mouth. Because arguing never helped. Complaining never changed anything. Mom's favoritism was a wall I couldn't break through. It wasn't just about school. It was about feeling like I mattered, like my efforts counted. But they didn't. Not in her eyes. Not in that house where Chloe's every little success was a spotlight and mine was a shadow. I tried to convince myself I was strong, that I didn't need her approval. But deep down, it was crushing me. To be ignored by the one person who was supposed to see you the clearest, that's a kind of pain nobody talks about. So I bottled it up. Put on a brave face. Pretended like I didn't care. But I did. I cared more than anything. And that care, quiet and desperate, was the only thing keeping me holding on to the hope that someday, maybe someday, I'd be seen. When Chloe announced her engagement, the whole world seemed to spin faster. Suddenly, everything was about her. The perfect fiancé, the perfect wedding, the perfect life. Mom's excitement was impossible to miss. Every phone call, every conversation, was drenched in plans, dresses, colors, guest lists. But me, I was nowhere in the picture. No dress fittings. No, let's talk about your role in the wedding. No gentle hints that I mattered. Just silence, like I was invisible again. I asked Mom once if I could help. She glanced at me like I was a fly, buzzing around the kitchen. "You'll be there," she said, brushing me off with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. That's enough. But it wasn't enough. I wanted to be part of it, not as a token, not as an afterthought, but like family, like a sister. The more they planned, the smaller I felt. Invitations went out with careful attention to who mattered and who didn't. Chloe's friends got glittering notes in thick envelopes. I got a simple text. Be there on time. No drama. No drama. Like I was some problem waiting to happen. So I bought my own dress. Nothing fancy. Nothing that screamed for attention. Just something simple and respectful. I wrapped a small gift and hoped to show up with grace, to be quietly present. But as soon as I stepped into the venue, the whispers started. Is that her sister? Why does she look so plain? Maybe she's adopted. Each word hit, like a slap, louder in the crowded room. The people I grew up around, the family who should have had my back, they didn't. They looked at me like I was a mistake. And my mother? She didn't hide her disdain. Later, when I approached to congratulate Chloe, Mom looked me up and down and then laughed. Couldn't you at least try to look presentable? This is a wedding, not a yard sale. It was cruel, sharp, and public. Chloe smirked. The guests chuckled awkwardly. And I stood there, burning with shame. That night, I walked away from the wedding not as a sister celebrating her siblings' joy, but as someone crushed under the weight of a family's scorn. I thought I could hold it together. I really did. But when Mom laughed at me in front of everyone, something inside broke. The way she looked at me, like I was nothing, like I didn't belong. It wasn't just embarrassing. It was soul-crushing. I stood frozen for a second, heart pounding so loud I was sure everyone could hear it. The guests shifted uncomfortably, whispering behind their hands. Chloe's smirk burned into my skin. I wanted to scream, to run, to disappear. But I just stood there, feeling like a mistake on display. When I finally turned away, I didn't look back. I couldn't. I felt the sting of tears but swallowed them down. I'd learned long ago that crying only made you weaker in their eyes. So I kept walking, out of the room, out of the noise, out of the world that had always told me I was less. That night, alone in my small apartment, I let the walls hold me up as I let the hurt pour out. The unfairness of it all. How the one person who was supposed to love me unconditionally made me feel worthless. How Chloe, my own sister, watched it all like a spectator enjoying the show. I thought about the years of being overlooked, of trying and failing to be enough for a family that only wanted perfection wrapped in a pretty bow. And for what? To be mocked in a dress I bought with my own money? To be treated like a joke at my sister's happiest moment? But beneath the heartbreak, beneath the humiliation, something fierce began to grow. A quiet fire. Not for revenge or anger, no, something steadier, something real. I wasn't going to be invisible anymore, not in that family, not in that life. It wasn't about them seeing me today. It was about me finally seeing myself. What no one knew, what I kept tucked away behind my quiet smiles and steady shoulders, was that I wasn't just standing still. While they were busy celebrating Chloe's perfect life, I was quietly building something of my own. Months before the wedding, I had reached out to my late grandfather's attorney. Grandpa had been the only family member who saw me, not as the background child, but as someone worth believing in. He always told me, "Ella, you've got strength, even when you don't feel it. Mom cut ties with him years ago, calling him selfish, saying he had nothing left to give. But Grandpa left me something precious, something real. The attorney and I worked quietly, no one around to hear our talks or notice the meetings. It was a slow process, filled with legal papers and secret phone calls. I kept it all to myself, because I knew how it would sound if Mom found out. She'd dismiss it, laugh it off, or worse, turn it into another reason to put me down. But I held on to it like a lifeline. The knowledge that maybe, just maybe, I wasn't invisible after all. I didn't want to brag or use it to hurt anyone. I just wanted to prove to myself that I mattered, that I had value outside their narrow, judgmental world. It was a quiet kind of hope, the kind that builds in the shadows, steady and slow, until it's ready to burst out. No one suspected a thing. Not Chloe, not Mom, not the family who looked past me like I was air. And that was exactly how I wanted it. 3 days after the wedding, everything changed. I was sitting at home, trying to pick up the pieces of my bruised heart, when the attorney's call came through. His voice was cold and clear, no room for argument or doubt. As of today, Ms. Ella Thompson is the sole owner of your grandfather's estate, he said. This includes several properties, investments, and notably, the wedding venue. The wedding venue. The very place where Chloe's grand day had played out, where I was laughed at and dismissed. The place that had symbolized everything I wasn't allowed to be. I sat back, stunned. The words echoed louder than any family argument ever had. I was officially the owner of the venue, the place where they had made me feel small. Mom's reaction was immediate when the news broke. Her face went pale, shock turning to fury in a matter of seconds. Chloe nearly fainted, her perfect world crumbling at the edges. The family who had always seen me as less suddenly had to confront the reality that I held the power they never gave me, but I earned in silence. I didn't celebrate. I didn't gloat. That wasn't who I was. I simply accepted the truth. The quiet victory of being recognized on my own terms. Not through their eyes, but through my own strength. It was a turning point. Not just in property or money, but in who I was to myself and to them. When the news spread, the room went silent like a bad movie had just paused. Mom's jaw tightened. Her eyes, usually sharp with control, darted nervously as if trying to erase the words from the air. Chloe's face drained of color, her perfect life suddenly cracking under the weight of an inheritance she never saw coming. The family, too, struggled to process it. The same people who once whispered and laughed at me now stared with disbelief, their whispers turning into stammered questions. How could the background child suddenly own the venue? The venue that was the centerpiece of Chloe's grand wedding, the symbol of their pride and exclusion. I watched their stunned faces, feeling a strange calm settle over me. No anger, no revenge, just a quiet strength born from years of being overlooked. For once, I wasn't the one shrinking away. I was the one standing tall. This wasn't just about money or property. It was a shift in power, a change in the story. The one they dismissed had become the one they had to reckon with, and they knew it. I didn't want a spectacle. I didn't want to shout or throw insults. That wasn't my style. Not after years of watching drama tear families apart. Instead, I chose silence. Quiet confidence. The kind that speaks louder than any argument. I took control of the venue, making calls, planning events, setting new rules. The space that once symbolized my humiliation became a symbol of my resilience. I watched from the sidelines as Mom and Chloe struggled to find footing in this new reality. Their whispered doubts and sideways glances didn't shake me. I was calm. Focused. Unshakable. For years I had waited for validation that never came. Now I gave it to myself. No need for revenge. No need to prove them wrong with words. I proved it with action, with quiet strength that no one could ignore. They could laugh or sneer all they wanted. I was done shrinking. I had claimed my place. Walking past them for the first time after the inheritance felt like stepping into a new skin, one I'd never dared wear before. The weight on my shoulders wasn't heavy anymore. It was a crown. I saw the surprise flicker in Mom's eyes, the jealousy lurking behind Chloe's forced smile. But I didn't care. I didn't need their approval or their recognition. I was finally standing where I belonged. Not in the shadows, but in the light. It wasn't about rubbing it in their faces. It was about finally being seen for who I was. The girl they ignored, the sister they dismissed, the woman who'd been quietly building her own kingdom. Every step felt like a small victory, a declaration that I wasn't the background anymore. I was a queen, and this was my throne. And this time, no one could take it away. I never needed to prove myself to them. The years of silence, the countless overlooked moments, the pain, they all led me here. Sitting behind that desk, overseeing the venue, I felt a peace I'd never known. This wasn't just about ownership. It was about reclaiming my worth on my own terms. I smiled because I was free. Free from their judgments, free from the role they forced me into. I was no longer the background child or the forgotten sister. I was Ella Thompson, strong, steady, and finally in control of my story. The past might have shaped me, but it no longer defined me. This was my life now, and I was ready to write it how I wanted.